8, we get rid of the 10. 7n squared equals 63. Divide by 7. N squared equals 9. Square root it, and n is equal to plus or minus 3. So if you struggle on these ones, don't panic. Just try and do your best. You should be alright with problems like 8 and 6 and 5, right? And then remember, whenever you square a negative, you just have to have a complex number, so you put the I. Alright, solve each equation by factoring. So first I'm going to factor, which means I need my 2 parentheses, the v's split up in front, and now I need the multiples of 5 there. The only multiples of 5 are 5 and 1, and to get those to add up to 6, they both need to be positives. So let's check. V times v is v squared. 5 times 1 is 5. When I add 5 and 1, I get 6. That is true. Those are my factors. So if it just said to factor, I would be done. But because it says to solve, I need to find what I need to plug in here to get a 0. So opposite of positive 5 would be a negative 5. Opposite of a positive 1 would be a negative 1. These would be my solutions, which are also called roots, zeros, or x-intercepts. All right, let's try 10. I factor it. R squared breaks up to r and r. Multiples of 36. Ooh, that add up to 12. Oh, that's nice. 36 would be 6 times 6. And then to get negative 12, they both have to be negatives. Let's check. R times r is r squared. 6 times 6 is positive 36. That's true because 2 negatives make it positive. When I put them together, they make negative 6 and negative 6 are negative 12. Good factors. Now I need to solve, which means r equals a positive 6, and this r equals a positive 6. So those are my solutions. Zeros, roots, are also called x-intercepts. If they ever ask us to solve for any of those 4, we can just factor it and find the solutions. 11, I break up the a and a and to factor it. 25, multiples of 25 are 5 and 5, but notice there's no middle term, it just went away. So to cancel those out so that there's nothing in the middle, one needs to be a positive and one needs to be a negative. A and a squared. 5 times 5 is negative 25. When I add them together, there's nothing in the middle, so that's good. Solve. A equals negative 5 in the first factor when I solve it. A equals a positive 5. Those are the solutions, roots, zeros, or the x-intercepts. They're all the same meaning. Factor. V breaks up into v and v. 28. Let's see, you can do 2 times 14, but that won't give you 3. You could do, let's see, 4 goes into it 7 times. 4 and 7, 7, 8. Hey, they're 3 apart, so then that will work to get the 3. So I use 4 and 7. I want a negative 3, which means the biggest number needs to be negative, and the smaller number is positive. V times v is v squared. 4 times 7 is negative 28. When I add them together, I get negative 3. That's true, so I factor them correctly. Solve. That means v equals -4 and v equals a +7 for my solutions, my roots, or my zeros, or x-intercepts. I'm going to factor. B squared breaks up. 24 is 2 times 12. Let's see, that won't add up to 11. So then we do 4 times 6, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 3 and 8. 8, 9, 10, 11. Oh, those add up to 11. So we use 3 and 8. And to get them to be positive 11, they both need to be positives. B times B is B squared. 3 times 8 is 24. When I add them together, I get 11. My solutions are -3 and -8. Factor the B. 16. 2 times 8. Ooh, that would give me 10 when I put them together. So they both need to be negatives. B times B is B squared. -2 times -8 is +16 because there's 2 negatives. -2 and -8 put together make -10. B equals a +2 for the first factor, and B equals a +8 for the second factor when I find the solution. 15, this one always tends to trick us. It has a common factor of m, so I'm going to take an m out. 7 with 1 m is left over, plus the number that's in front of the m is a 1, equals 0. There's no numbers next to it, so that means this one equals 0. And then I set this factor equal to 0, and then solve it. Divide by 7. So m is equal to 1/7. All right, 16. Let's say that you don't like factoring when the a is at 10. So I can just label it a, b, c and use the quadratic formula. Which is 41 plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. That's a 10. 41 plus or minus the square root of, I enter in what's in the root, -41 squared minus 4 times 10 times 40 equals 81 over 20. Square root of 81 is 9, which breaks into 2 pieces. 41 plus 9 is 50 over 20. And then 41 minus 9 is 32 over 20, which is equal to 8 over 5 for the solutions. So that means x equals 5 over 2 and x equals 8 over 5. Now on the rest of these, you're going to do the quadratic formula. So for example, I want to make sure that this side is a 0. -2 r squared plus 8r minus 65 equals 0, a, b, c. Plug it in. You get -b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Simplify. -8 plus or minus the square root 8 squared minus 4 times 1 times -65 equals 324 over 2. 324 turns into plus or minus 18. Add the top, so -8 plus 18 is 10 over 2, which equals 5. -8 minus 18 is a -26 over 2, which equals -13. So x equals 5 and x equals -13. And we'll do that for 18, 19, and 20. Solve the quadratic formula. You want all of the terms on one side. Wherever the squared is, I tend to just move them over to where the x squared is. So you would do plus 10 then you would add the 9x. So you'd get 5x squared plus 9x plus 10 equals 0. A, B, C, plug it in. Same thing here, minus the 19. 11n squared minus 19 equals 0. N squared is the A, there's no B, and then that's C. So you'd plug in a 0 for B for the quadratic formula. Add the 11x over. You'd get 5x squared plus 11x minus 8 equals 0. A has the x squared, B is the x, C is the constant. Minus the 10n. It goes in the center. 8n squared minus 10n minus 16 equals 0. A, B, C. Minus 7n. 3n squared minus 7n plus 12 equals 0. A, B, C. Add the 9. This time that 9 goes on the end because it's the constant. A, B, C. Make sure you plug those into the quadratic and simplify.